Assalamu alaikum, Dustaziz. It is I, Aaron Freeman, a sciencey optimist. You like how I said that?
You did very well. Yeah, very
Thank
impressive.
you very much.
Yes.
That really extremely good-looking man there next to me is the fabulous Professor Ahmad Sadri, a professor of Global Islamic Studies at Lake Forest College here on the beautiful North Shore of Chicago. And it is Unification Week here on Science Today. Today we're going to talk to Dr. Professor Sadri about a man who was able to take a polytheistic nation and narrow it down to two gods, only one of whom was good. And then we'll take it from there. So, of course, anyone watching right now who's watching us live, you are invited to join in. And if you are watching this video replay on Facebook, please leave your comments. But, Professor Ahmad Sadri, so back in the days before Zoroaster, what was the god situation like in Persia?
Well, there were these Aryan tribes in the steppes.
Aryan as in Hitler?
Well, Hitler, like the same way he stole swastika, he also stole the term Aryan. Aryan was the name of these tribes. This is how these tribes call themselves, which means noble. And it gives the center of the word Iran. Iran is, in other words, Aryan, which means the home of the noble people.
Okay, all right then. So these various Aryan tribes.
These various Aryan tribes, and they were at this time, before they migrated to Iran and India, they migrated south twice, once to India and once to Iran. But at this point, they are kind of Indo-Iranian Aryan tribes, and then at this point, they are polytheistic. They are more, for the most part, animal herders, mostly huge herds of cows and other animals such as sheep and goats.
What period of time are we talking here?
So it is probably any time from 4,000 years ago to 3,000 years ago.
Okay, all right. 2,000 BCE to 3,000 BCE.
Yeah. Yes. No. Well.
2 to 1.
Yeah.
2 to 1. Yeah.
So probably 2000. Yeah. 2001 to 2000 BC.
Yeah. Okay.
So these groups were polytheistic, and they had these gods that supported various tribes who were, as one might guess, very warlike, very violent, very much into cattle rustling, very much they had institutionalized things like gambling, competitive gambling. And so they would get together in these festivals and they would gamble and they would drink and there would be, and they gradually became more violent. We are guessing maybe because some of these people traveled down to Mesopotamia, where the Mesopotamian civilizations such as Assyrians and Babylonians, these civilizations had developed very advanced warfare, war technology, such as chariots, such as advanced weapons, and they brought this back. Probably this caused a kind of uptick in the intertribal violence.
Because there was a technological means by which one tribe could gain superiority and had every incentive to fight since they figured they could win.
Right. And the wars that had been basically routinized became increasingly more violent. Okay. And the problem was that the gods of these various tribes did not exhort against violence, did not tell people to treat everybody justly. These were not moral religions. At this point, there was no such a thing as a moral religion in the world. Religions, as we know, for example,
I'm a Jew. I've read the Torah. I know that, but it's not a book of universal love. Our God is not a God of universal love.
Yes, actually, it didn't used to be. So initially, Hebrew tribes, very much like these Aryan tribes, very much like these Mesopotamian gods, they were not moral, universal gods. They were tribal gods, and they were both mostly amoral. They did not even tell you to treat other members of your own tribe justly. All you had to do was to sacrifice to these gods, and they were happy. You know,
right, of course. So into this milieu of competitive, selfish, amoral gods comes. Where does Zoroaster come from?
So because of this increasing violence, and because of this kind of violence that is sanctioned by gods, we have a reform movement, so to speak, that actually becomes a radical rejection of the religion that Zoroaster, as a priest of that religion, was reared in. And
now, I'm sorry, let me make sure. So Zoroaster was at one point a priest of one within the context of this polytheistic world.
Indeed. Yes.
Okay.
Sometime that we are not sure when. Some people say 1700 BCE. Some people say 300 BCE. We don't know exactly at what point, but we know that Zoroaster has a vision, and in this vision, he has a revelation.
Okay, revelation. Oh, we love when our holy men have that. You got to have that, a good revelation. What's a holy man without a good revelation?
Indeed, indeed. So what we have here is Zoroaster comes up with a new idea, with a new theology, that there are these gods that the Aryans worship. They're not all good gods. They divide into two groups: gods that follow the good, the light, and gods that follow the evil, the darkness. The gods of good and gods of bad, gods of light and gods of darkness. So actually he demotes these gods that Aryans had, called devas, into demons. So these gods.
So etymologically, are we saying that the devas became devils?
No, the devas actually.
Oh, the demos.
Yeah, they became demons. But the word divinity that we have in English language, because English is also in the European language, because the Aryans also in another migration migrated up into the Europe and populated the entire European continent, and that is why those languages are also in the European. The word deva is the root of the word divinity. But remember, does it make sense? But remember,
I do want to say though that I know we have some folks watching. So if you have a question, if something like clarification or a little deepening of your understanding of what Professor Sadri is talking about, this is of course Ahmad Sadri, professor of Global Islamic Studies at Lake Forest College here on the beautiful North Shore of Lake Michigan. So if you have questions, please give us just leave them below. We will get to them and see if we can get Professor Sadri to answer them. But so into this, it's an immoral god. There's violence around, and then Zoroaster has a dream that is deeply rooted in the Persian dream. He is the dream. What?
So this dream is that there are good gods and there are bad gods.
Right, good gods and bad guys.
Gods are demons, and the good gods are the gods of light and purity. And so what human beings are supposed to do is to help good gods to win the battle. There is a cosmic battle between good and evil, between light and darkness. And our task, according to the Zoroastrian vision, is to help the gods of good to win the battle. How can we do that? Every time you do a good deed, you just help the forces of light to vanquish the minions of the evil. Every time you do evil, you have to do the opposite.
But so, as a sociologist, you got this culture of polytheism. Lots of different people have lots of different gods, and they're all amoral. Why would people just listen? Why would anyone listen to Zoroaster? Why would you believe that all of a sudden God? Why would you accept the notion that a God should or could be moral if that's not a part of your culture?
Well, this is the question that we can pose to any prophet. When new religions come, somebody comes forth and claims the way Jesus was reforming Judaism. Very similarly, Zoroaster was reforming the Iran, Persian and Indian, tribes. And he was saying, look, we have misunderstood this whole thing, and there is good and bad in the universe. And a good God would never encourage you to go and steal somebody's cow. A good God would not tell you to go and kill somebody and steal their women. Good gods will tell you to do good things, and our task in this world is to resist the temptation of being evil and help the good win the battle. So actually in Zoroastrian religion, it is not we who ask for the help of God, it's God who asks us to help him.
Ah, okay. No, wait. So all the gods most of the gods, or all the gods got demoted to being.
No. Only the evil gods got demoted.
Okay.
So we have two groups of God.
Okay.
The devas became the demons.
Okay.
And so they became the forces, the minions of the evil force in the universe called Angremenu or Ahriman. The good gods became the angels, the helpers of the good force in the universe called Ahura Mazda. So we have this dualistic vision of the universe, and we are supposed to help the good against evil. The dualism kind of evolves in Iran. There are other kind of more advanced or more intricate versions of this as time goes on. The Mazdaki religion, the Manichaean religion, but these are all dualistic religions. So in a dualistic religion, this is the first time we have a moral religion, where a religion is telling you to be good, to avoid being evil, and sacrificing to a god, even to a good God, is not going to get you that far. You have to be good. You have to treat people justly, and you have to be universally good to everybody.
Now, I can certainly see why this would sell well, because this enjoins, buying into this religion enjoins your neighbor from hurting you.
Indeed. And then imagine in a world that is suffering from that kind of intertribal violence,
right.
This is the kind of message. Of course, why people listen to him, partly because he was charismatic, like every prophet. People believed him. But also the message also had heart for the people who lived in the middle of this violence, to stop being violent, to stop being aggressive, to live in peace, and to live morally. Time had come for this message. And once this message arrived, then you have the birth of a new religion that profoundly influences Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And all these three religions have very, very deep marks of this moral vision of Zoroastrianism.
So now, Zoroastrianism is one of Iran's 4 officially recognized religions, along with Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. There's that one. So why, though? Because the prophet should have supplanted. Well, first of all, what percentage of Iranians care about Zoroaster at all, in your estimation, these days?
So Zoroastrians remained in Iran. After the Arab invasion, a group of them migrated to India. They are now completely Indianized. They don't speak Persian. They have basically forgotten the Persian language, but they are Zoroastrians. They are known as Parsis.
Ah, okay.
So they also exist in Iran, and there is a small minority of Zoroastrians, and they are recognized, therefore they have a representative in the Iranian parliament.
Why though? I mean, because shouldn't the prophets, the prophet have supplanted all that has gone before?
No, because in Islam, the religions of the book are recognized as legitimate. So Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians are recognized as official religions, although they are not Muslim, but they are recognized to live under the Islamic regime, under the Islamic aegis, and
As
even from the very beginning of Islam, these groups were recognized as minorities, and their rights were protected. And when the Islamic regime, the Islamic revolution occurred, they kind of did the same thing. I should say that Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians had representatives in the Iranian regime before the Islamic revolution as well. So
that was in the 1920 constitution, right? That the Jews and Zoroastrians and Christians would be represented in the Majid was a part of the 1920 Iranian constitution.
Yes, yes. So Islamic regime based on the on Islamic political system recognized them. I should add that only in Iran Zoroastrians are recognized as a legitimate religion of the book by Muslims. In other countries, this is not the case. So obviously, Iranians recognize that Zoroastrians because Zoroastrianism is an Iranian religion. But basically, Islam should recognize Zoroastrianism because Zoroastrianism is a moral religion and is an advanced religion, and it's a religion that basically, although it is kind of monotheistic because it asks its followers to follow the one good God, but it also recognizes the power of a co-equal God, the God of darkness and evil, that in Christianity and Judaism exists as Satan, as a kind of fallen angel. But then one would have to ask, why would God create a bad force that would kind of tempt people to do bad things? And Jewish and Muslim and Christian theologians pull out their hair trying to explain this. Zoroastrian theologians have it easy. They say, the good God had no control over this. This is how the world is. There is good as opposed to evil. And another thing that is easy for Zoroastrian theologians is theodicy, that is explaining evil in the world. If you believe in one good God that created everything, then you would have to explain why would a good God create war and famine and sickness and death. And it is very hard. Again, all these Abrahamic theologians have been sweating it out, trying to explain it. A Zoroastrian priest just would smile very angelically and say, all the bad things in the world are not the creation of the good God. They are the creation of the evil God.
That's good. Okay, now you've told me on numerous occasions that modern Iranians are done with the Islamic Revolution. They're so over the Islamic Revolution. Fair?
Yes, the Iranian people are done with the ideology of an Islamic state.
Okay,
they are overwhelmingly Muslim. There is still sociological studies show that the big majority of Iranians still pray and go to Mecca and fast in Ramadan. It's a good majority that does that. But they don't want, even those people who are observing religion, they don't want the religion in their politics or vice versa.
Even among the youth of Iran?
Absolutely. Even the youths in Iran, so to speak, they, insofar as they are interested in religious ceremonies or participating in religious festivals, for instance, in the festival of the month of Muharram, they participate, but they do it their own way, and they are not for kind of exploiting this for political reasons. Yeah, that is what it is.
Well, as long as you mention political reasons, we happen to be talking on a day when some interesting stuff is going on between the President Rouhani, your sponsor, who's a traitor to his country and is selling out to the Americans. There's some words passed between Rouhani and our president, Bone Spurs. You got a quick commentary on that as you watch it?
Yeah, I think Mr. Trump just threatened to do to Iran what nobody has ever done to Iran before, and it's kind of rattling his sabers. He should know that Iran has been invaded by Alexander and by the Arabs and by the Mongols. So Iran has been through massacres and huge catastrophes. United States is a couple of hundred years old, and Iranians have been there for 2,500 years old. So we basically have been through a threat or two in our history. But probably should get back to what we were talking about.
Okay, well, I just wanted, but see, well, but it is sort of relevant because the idea is that the administration is pushing and Pompeo is pushing is that there's this big schism between the religious, the mullahocracy, and the regular Iranians. And I'm trying to understand as we talk about.
But there's no Iranian. There is Pompeo tried to bring together about a couple of hundred Iranian Americans who support his view, and he was not able to bring a single prominent Iranian to his gathering. Even Iranian Americans who are entirely against this regime, they don't support kind of a foreign invasion, which is the threat that Mr. Trump is using.
But
meeting in California was a huge disaster.
And so I assume just for the one last bit, then we'll go right back. But what I think I hear you saying is sort of what Rouhani said, which is that threatening the country will bring people is more likely to bring people more in line with the Islamic Republic than it is to cause them to rise up in rebellion.
Yes, of course, it is elementary. When you threaten a country, of course, people are going to, flock to their flag and defend the country. No, it would be very, very few people who would support an invasion. Especially, we live in a world where right next door to Iraq, President Bush, who invaded Iraq, tried to rally together a bunch of Iraqis who supported it. And he had a group of people, for instance, Mr. Chalabi, who championed the invasion of Iraq. And every single one of those people lived to regret it. And they repented from their action because nothing got better in Iraq. And the situation in Iraq got a lot worse. And we got basically a big zero out of it if you don't count the creation of ISIS and things like that, and the devastation of a country.
Well, not to mention, I think something like $3 trillion in U.S. Taxpayer money.
Yes, we got nothing for that except the hatred of the Iraqis. And Iraqis, obviously, with a devastated country, you will have a very hard time to find Iraqis who appreciate American intervention. And Iranians have seen this, so that is why there are very, very, very few Iranians, if any, who support an invasion.
But apropos our discussion of monotheism, the reason I was asking is that because you said people are done with the Islamic Republic, I was trying to understand, did that mean that the young people were done with monotheism, done with the monotheistic religion, done with their religion?
No. Iranians are still very, very religious. Again, a lot of Iranians who are kind of well-educated, they look around themselves and they see that people that they know are no longer religious, and they kind of think that this is universal. But sociological studies show that something to the order of 75% of Iranians are still very much religious, but the same studies show that the people who are religious, they don't want a mixture of religion and politics. They want disestablishment, separation of church and state, secularism in the sense of having a democratic state that does not want to impose a particular official version of a religion on people.
So what I think I hear you saying is that while it remains largely monotheistic, modern Iran wants more Jeffersonian Islam.
Yes, basically, yeah, indeed. The insight that we should separate church and state was one of the greatest foundations of this country. And throughout the world, it has, because it was a good idea, it has spread. And Iranians, I would say, not only are more Jeffersonian, I would say they are more Jeffersonian than the average American.
So, what do you mean?
I mean,
that they're more committed to the idea of.
We have 100,000. We have 100 million fundamentalist Christians. We have many people who believe that the Bible should be in our constitution, or it should be our constitution. You have dominationist Christians who believe that we should merge Christianity with the constitution and make this a Christian country, including our vice president. So
okay.
you don't have those numbers in Iran. If you poll Iranians on average are more secular in the sense of separation of church and state, not in the sense of disbelief. In that objective sense, Iranians on average are more secular than Americans.
I get it. Wow, that's a fabulous insight and a great place to stop. Let me just say once again, thank you so much to my beloved sibling, Professor Ahmad Sadri, Professor of Global Islamic Studies at Lake Forest College. I am Aaron Freeman. I am a sciencey optimist. I post new sciencey optimistic videos every Monday through Friday. If you enjoyed this one, please smash that like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or like our Facebook channel, Accelerate Science Today, right here on Facebook. So until next time, we thank you, my brother, Professor Ahmad Sadri, and we hope that you all have a great time as you science the day. Ahmad, thank you, my brother.
Peace.
Peace. That's peace. That's what I'm talking about.